Welcome, everyone. We are going to get started. Thank you to, most importantly, all the residents who are here with us this evening, and of course to the department leaders who are providing our content. Thank you. And to my fellow council members, I know Councilmember Remy is on his way and a little delayed by traffic, but will be here any minute. The purpose of today's hearing is to review the 2022 capital improvements budget proposed by Mayor Ginther last week. This is our second hearing covering the proposal. The presentations from the department will be tailored to the north side of Columbus. We did publish in our advisories for these hearings the actual planning areas that are assigned to each hearing that we do, essentially to try to help residents follow the money, if they will. When we talk about the budget all across the city, all the physical investments in every corner of the city, it's often hard to understand what's happening near you. Yep, I will move the microphone closer to me. So as further background, just to make sure we're all locating ourselves in the capital budget, capital projects relate to physical assets like roads, sewer and water infrastructure, parkland, fire stations, much more. They do not relate to operating expenses like personnel or program. We know these capital investments are vital for supporting our quality of life and our local economy all at once. And so for this reason, it has been long-standing tradition in the city of Columbus to set aside a quarter of every dollar collected in city income tax to finance them. I'm just going to take a little pause. We good? Okay. That's a very long way of saying we have a unique approach here in Columbus that sets aside a portion of income tax, a small portion, to pay our debt capacity on capital projects. And that ensures that we're able to have these capital budgets on a regular basis. It is tied to income tax, but it really guarantees we're able to afford those debt payments and have a healthy debt capacity. So, as I've mentioned, these investments only do their highest good when they align with residents' needs, and that's why we're here today to hear your input. You will have several opportunities to share your feedback with us. Today's hearing, which again is the second of 4, and then we'll be conducting 2 additional hearings next Tuesday and Thursday. Please feel free to ask a staff member walking around for a speaker slip if you'd like to sign up to speak and provide testimony tonight. And then if you're unable to attend additional hearings in person, or if you know of people who aren't here tonight who wanted to be, they can tune in on the city's YouTube and Facebook page and actually type in their questions there. We took 3 questions virtually 2 nights ago, which made me feel very 2022. So that is the rule. Please tell your networks. We're happy to indulge that. And then finally, we have been circulating an input form on capital investments to our area commissions and our civic associations. Council members have shared them on our Facebook pages. Anyone can fill this out to help us collect input on your needs. Remember, I will give you a tip. As you share your requests, be as specific as you can about location. It's a big city. It's 224 square miles, and we want to match your request with the right department and the right need as expeditiously as possible. Again, I also on that point want to thank our area commissions and our civics, because they've done a great job helping us to circulate this form. So this hearing is going to proceed after I close my opening remarks here by going through the departments. They will share their department's capital budget allocation and the projects near your neighborhood. After that, council members on either side of me will ask their questions of those department heads. We will proceed that way through all the department heads up here. Then at the end, we will move to resident testimony. That's where we can take feedback and questions from you, which council members will respond to if we're the right folks to do so. But often if it's really in specifics, that'll be the department heads that weigh in at that point to help you get your questions answered. And when we don't get a question answered here, we do have staff team members that will be able to help route your question to the right place and get you an answer at some point. So with that, I want to thank again my colleagues for being here, and get myself away from the microphone, because maybe it's just me with the feedback, and turn it over to Deputy Director of the Department of Finance, Chris Long.
Sort of? Not? Better? Oh, okay. So, first and foremost, thank you, President Harden, President Pro Tem Brown, and members of Council for the opportunity to present Finance Department's 2022 capital budget request. Also, up, better? Better? How's that? Any different? We do have a DOT section of the budget we'll go over later tonight. Is that can you hear me? Is this better? A little bit. Let's try it. I can project, I think. Is that actually better? Okay, so let me cycle through some slides here and just get ready. Next slide, if someone could help me cycle. So while that cycles, thank you, President Harden, President Pro Tem Brown, members of Council, and all of you for being here tonight to provide valuable input on our capital budget process. Also, a quick thank you to Mayor Andrew J. Ginther for his leadership and guidance in preparing our capital budget request for this year, and Auditor Kilgore as well for all of her guidance. If we could cycle back just a couple. There we go. Next slide, please. So my goal for this evening in a quick presentation is to echo some of the comments that President Pro Tem Brown just made about the overall capital budget process itself. So we'll talk about that briefly, and then I'll move into Finance Department's specific portion of the overall capital budget for this evening. Finance is an inward-facing department, so we don't have projects that necessarily speak specifically to the North End, but we'll still talk about those capital budget inclusions and certainly take any questions that you have. So just briefly, in the City of Columbus, we have two operating cycles. Many of the times these run concurrently with one another. There's the operating budget and there's our capital budget, which is we're here tonight to talk about. Operating, as President Pro Tem Brown just mentioned, does handle like the daily operations of the city, whether it's personnel, programs, supplies, services, and those are funded largely by income tax revenues and by enterprise fund revenues. So just a point of distinction on that. Next slide, please. Capital budget, which we're here to talk about tonight, obviously funds major infrastructure investments. Those are the things that you are all very familiar with. It's roads, it's sidewalks, it's park improvements, it's recreation facilities, and that's funded, as President Pro Tem Brown mentioned, by a 25% set aside from income tax dollars that we bring in. Those are actually deposited into a fund that's specifically reserved for those revenues. It's called the Special Income Tax Fund. Next slide, please. So what do we do in the Finance Department? Well, we largely compile with the help of Council, with the help of the Mayor's Office, with the help of departments, compiling a capital budget request for the entire city. So it's very much in partnership with our departments and obviously informed by the general public. I get to talk about it, but we have two individuals in our department that actually do the work. Kyle Seaver-Hart, who is here tonight, does much of the heavy lifting. She's our debt management coordinator and really puts together the budget. Angela Cousin works directly for Kyle. She's not here with us tonight, but I just wanted to mention both of them. This wouldn't be possible without them. So thank you, Kyle. Next slide, please. So here's a really quick overview of the 2022 capital budget. This is the citywide capital budget, $1.24 billion. The pie chart only has two sections. Worth mentioning is that the capital budget request for this year actually has two components. One is carryover, one is new dollars. Carryover is authorized capital budget appropriations from last year that remain unspent, and so we need to reauthorize those this year. That's very common. As you can imagine, many of these capital projects are multi-year investments. So it's very common where you have large dollar investments that just take a while to spend down. So we have those reauthorized for the current fiscal year. The green section, $859.1 million, that's new funding. So those would be new capital budget requests citywide across departments, which represent new capital investments. Next slide, please. So of the $859.1 million of new funding, how's that broken down? Well, the largest portion of that, $545 million, is enterprise fund supported. And Assistant Director John Lee is here tonight on behalf of the Department of Public Utilities and will speak to those. But those are ratepayer supported capital projects. The $307 million is income tax or special income tax supported capital projects. So many of the departments here tonight will be talking about items that will be funded from that green section. Next slide, please. So we have a $1.24 billion total capital budget in the city. The finance department itself has a very small portion of that. It's about $25 million. And as I said earlier, it's an inward-facing department, so much of what we do is invest in infrastructure to support other city departments. So for instance, for finance, there's roughly 100 buildings under the purview of finance to maintain and take care of. These would be things like city infrastructure buildings, police headquarters, and those various facilities. So much of our budget is built around maintaining existing city facilities. So I'll just run through these fairly quickly, and we can certainly answer questions you have on those. Facility renovations project cost allocation. We have staff in our department, a construction management team that actually does a lot of this work. Well, a portion of their staffing is capital eligible, so we set aside dollars that can help pay for those. Facility renovations various is what I was talking about earlier. It's capital investments in existing city facilities. So general upkeep, renovations, HVAC, mechanicals, equipment, elevators, those types of things. That line item that says OCM design, project management, and small-scale renovation, these would be design contracts and small-scale renovations contracts managed by our Office of Construction Management, hence OCM designation. We have municipal campus renovations. So we, as many of you know, we have an actual municipal campus that consists of a handful of buildings. We have a specific line item to address capital needs for that finite group of city facilities. We have sustainable Columbus projects. These would be investments in alternative energy, sustainable energies, thinking, solar, and just general retrofitting of buildings to make them more energy efficient, new lighting, better HVAC. 240 Parsons Avenue, our health department will be speaking more to that tonight, but that will be investments in Columbus Public Health, located at 240 Parsons. Municipal Court CMAR. CMAR stands for Construction Manager at Risk. So we're contemplating, the city's contemplating constructing a new municipal court building. This would be a construction manager to assist with the construction design of that new facility. Roof replacement program is a citywide roof replacement program. We have many, many roofs, right? And so this is an opportunity to try to keep those in good working condition and repair and replace those as needed. Community facility renovations are just that. It's investment with community partners and area facilities. And then North Market building improvements are general renovations and upkeep at our North Market, at the North Market building. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm probably running close on time, so I'll just be quickly. This is how the capital budget process works in really overly simplified terms. Budget creations happen. That's what we're all here to talk about tonight. Public hearings are what we're doing now. And then we have hopefully council adoption, and we move on to a bond sale hopefully later this fall, and then actual shovels in the ground project implementation. Next slide, please. This is how you can reach us here in finance. Our director, Kathy Owens, is not here tonight, but we have the main line there, and I'm, of course, Chris Long. Please feel free to call me, reach out to me, email me anytime to answer questions. And then we also have our finance website. You'll see the address there, and we have the entire capital budget online, detailed line item by department. So please feel free to look at that and ask any questions. And thank you all for your time, and thank you, President Hardin, President Pro Tem Brown, and members of council. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. I will start with my colleagues. Yeah, Council President.
Director, thank you for the presentation. Just for maybe the community's clarification, you had two line items, one for community partner improvements, and then you had another line item for North Market. Would you explain the difference between why North Market, say, is not just another community partner?
Yes, President Hardin, happy to answer that question. So yes, actually, that particular line item is more of like we're calling it more of an opportunity type capital program, where there will be items that come up in the next capital year for which we need to be poised as a department to be able to respond to those capital investments. So North Market, while being a community partner, is almost an identified need at this point. That particular line item that you mentioned is for sort of unidentified capital projects that could come up that we don't necessarily know, but we want to have the capital dollars to be able to react to that.
And our relationship, though, with the North Market is one that we have a long-standing relationship or partnership in.
Yes, President Hardin, that's correct.
We own that building.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to
Yeah.
get.
Sorry, yes,
Yeah.
we actually own that facility,
Yes.
and as such, we try to maintain that facility and keep upkeep, yes. Thank you, sir.
And the just building on his question, the community partnership improvements, would those have to be assets that we owned? Or are they available for non-city owned improvements?
There is the potential to be able to invest in non-city owned real estate, right? But it would have to be largely for community-based work and for long-term community-based work.
Long-term public
Yes.
service? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for that. Next, we have the Department of Development Deputy Director Hannah Jones. We did not put them in order, so you'll get to move your necks around.
Man, I was sitting all back here like I'm second to last. This is great. No, you're great. It's keep me on my toes. Good evening, everybody. The Department of Development uses capital funding to make investments in support of our neighborhoods by increasing access to affordable housing, promoting community development, and generating jobs that pay a living wage. Our 2022 capital improvement budget request is approximately $78 million. This includes $22 million for affordable housing, $22 million for community development initiatives, $21 million for economic development projects, $7 million for planning and the Urban Infrastructure Recovery Program, and $5 million for our human service capital projects. Affordable housing remains our highest priority. Our goal is to foster a housing market where every household can obtain housing which costs no more than 30% of their monthly income in the neighborhood of their choice. In 2019, Columbus voters approved a $50 million affordable housing bond package that leveraged more than $300 million in public and private investment to build more than 1,300 new residential units throughout our city. Funds for the 2019 bond package have been fully allocated, and our capital request this evening includes the final $19.5 million needed to finish these projects. Neighborhood planning is also vital to the continued growth of our neighborhoods. Our planning division works closely with residents on land use planning and design guidelines in our effort to improve the quality of our neighborhoods. Our capital budget request includes $22 million for the acquisition of key real estate sites to ensure growth that supports those plans. In addition, our planning division coordinates the Urban Infrastructure Recovery Fund, which is a whole lot of words, so we call it UIRF because we also love acronyms. UIRF is a neighborhood-driven program that works in partnership with the Departments of Public Service, Public Utilities, and Recreation and Parks to provide improvements to our roadways, parks, and street lighting. We anticipate investing up to $30 million on 175 projects in our current round. And our capital proposal includes $7 million to continue the work on these projects. Our request also includes $5 million for human service initiatives, including $3.5 million to support Adam H. and their development of their addiction and crisis center, $1.5 million for Alvis House and the development of their South Side facility, and $350,000 for repairs to our homeless shelters. Lastly, I'd like to talk a bit about our public-private partnership program. Again, lots of words, so we call it 3P. Through the 3P program, the city makes targeted infrastructure investments that leverage private investment to support the city's economic development efforts. These projects are designed to create new employment centers, revitalize neighborhoods, and spur job creation. The partnership approach of the city has been critical to our continued growth. Over the past 5 years, we've leveraged $28.77 per single dollar of city capital investment. Our 2022 capital proposal includes $21 million for projects, which include $17.5 million for projects within the Arena District and the Confluence Village area, $2.5 million for infrastructure improvements within our neighborhood commercial revitalization districts, and $1 million for continued development within East Franklinton. This concludes our 2022 capital budget proposal, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Are there questions from my colleagues for development? All right, thank you. Deputy Director, I will ask if you can, I know we talk a lot about affordable housing, and you mentioned the $22 million for affordable housing. Could you talk a little bit about how the decisions are made around those investments? What kind of partnerships and et cetera?
Sure, absolutely. What we have found is that low-income housing tax credits is probably the largest funding source statewide in order to bring a large-scale number of units online quickly. So the majority of the projects that are being funded through the $22 million and the $50 million at large were part of grantees who received funding through that source. Of course, we all want them to work very closely with our community development corporations where they exist to ensure that we're providing wraparound services and other supports as well. And then we do have some homeowner services options as well.
Thank you so much. Next, we have the Department of Recreation and Parks, Deputy Director Steve Hyland.
Good evening, members of council, and thank you all. Here, okay? Thank you all for attending. It's a great opportunity for us to present our proposed 2022 capital budget. I wanted to begin by sharing the mission of our department because it's at the heart of everything we do. Our mission is to connect the people of our community through the power of nature, wellness, and creativity. What we are, this is an interesting slide for those of you that don't realize how many opportunities there are for the type of things we do out here. We are fortunate to be able to carry out this mission through the support of our annual capital budget, which is a different investment in your 407 parks and all of the amenities they offer, Columbus's portion of a 230-mile regional trail system, and in many facilities, community centers, pools, athletic complexes, where these connections are made every day. This is our 2022 budget, CIB. From the 2022 capital budget, Recreational Parks proposes $66 million in new capital support. That represents $23 million in base funding and another $43 million to support additional mayoral investment in large-scale projects. An additional $63 million will be carried forward from the 2021 capital budget. All this capital funding, a total of $129 million, goes towards support these existing assets as well as investing in the growth of our recreation and park system. How we determine how we're going to spend these bond funds is broken down by this chart. Since 2019, Recreation and Parks has utilized an allocation model to proportionally guide our capital planning process. This ensures each year that we're keeping a balance between taking care of the assets or our existing parks, amenities, and facilities in our system, as well as strategically expanding our park system to serve more people and keep pace with the growth of the community. The idea for this came from studying average capital expenditures by category across similar sized park systems from other members of the National Recreation and Parks Association. I want to go through and give you some examples of renovation projects. The following slides outline just a few of Recreation and Parks' active and proposed capital improvement projects that fall within each area of these allocation categories. The sampling generally is limited to a list of projects in the quadrants of the city represented in tonight's budget hearing. One of our key priorities is to take care of what we have. As a result, we commit 51% of our budget for improving our existing parks and facilities. Through our renovation budget, we support multiple parks and facility-related items, including equipment purchases necessary for our forestry and parks maintenance crews to keep our trees, parks in safe condition and well-maintained. These investments are identified through our asset planner database and through conditions assessments and public input. Some examples of improvements we're going to list here, and I'm going to pull this out because I'm having trouble reading that far. So we mentioned forestry and park maintenance equipment, bridge and culvert improvements, hard surfaces, sports courts, walking paths, parking lots, Northcrest Park resurfacing, Cooper Park basketball court resurfacing, street trees. There's many HVAC improvements all throughout the city, mechanical upgrades, smart control system upgrades, Feddersen, Brentnell, Howard, and Carriage Place. I'm reading through these fast. I'd be glad to answer any questions after we get through. Roof and building envelope, Carriage Place, Community Center, split place block sealer, and then we have energy efficient upgrades and lighting. Woodward Sports Court lighting replacement, Castile Park Tennis Court lighting addition. We also do playground, next slide. Playground replacements at Brevoort Park, Woodward Park, Maloney Park, Whetstone Park Playground. Also, we have park amenities and site furnishings improvements with this capital improvement funding. Park signage, picnic tables, benches, grills, bollard replacement, trash cans, all these are part of our capital improvement program. General Center and Park renovations, Whetstone Field improvements, Hoover Reservoir improvements, Galena Boardwalk replacement, ADA Fishing Pier construction, Walnut Street Dock replacement, and Greenway and shared plan use. Big Walnut Trail, Little Turtle Trail to Cherry Bottom connector, Allen Creek Trail connectors. New park development is West Case Park, Phase 1. All right, shout out. Warner Woods Park, Lynn View Park. Sampling of land acquisition. Recreation and Parks prioritizes parkland acquisition based on two factors. It's access and acreage. In the parks industry, these are often captured by the metrics 10-minute walk, which means striving for every resident to have a park or trail within a 10 minutes walk of their home, and the level of service, which means that there are adequate acres of parkland for every 1,000 residents. We analyze these metrics by our 6 land plan areas, which make up the entire city. We also focus on acquisition on key sites needed for conservation or other specific features or amenities known to be lacking in an area. You could see some of the acquisitions most recently: West Case Park, Warner Woods, Douglas Elementary School, Stockbridge School, Nobixby Park, Dysart Run, and Mason Run North Parkland. Also note on the land acquisition that most of these acquisitions leverage outside grant dollars from the state and other entities. Since 2019, we have acquired over 250 acres of parkland for either conservation or future park development. Next, I wanted to talk about our large and small and large projects. 12 indoor and 20 outdoor rental facilities, Antrim Shelter House, Whetstone Shelter House, siding replacement, Ottawa Lodge, 5 athletic complexes and many sports fields. We put gym dividers in these facilities, and we have 6 golf courses that are always in need of improvements. Next is a sampling of large-scale investments that we have sought and receive additional funding for. Glenwood and Windsor Pool construction, Tuttle Pool design, new pool at Tuttle, Marion Franklin Pool design, West Case Park Phase 1 construction, Bicentennial Fountain renovation, Climate Action Plan, Comprehensive Energy Management Plan implementation. That's a lot to read with this distance, sorry. Broad Street Arts and Senior Campus, but again, I could answer any other questions on that to get through that. In closing, my name is Steve Highland. There's my email address. I'm a lot better at corresponding with email and in person, so feel free to get a hold of me on that. But I want to thank you for your time and coming out here, and afterwards we could answer any questions.
Awesome. Deputy Director, thank you for that. And again, underscoring the hard work of the departments to put together presentations that help you really see where these dollars are going. So thank you for that, Deputy Director. Are there any questions for Recreation and Parks? Councilman Barimi.
Good afternoon. And, Deputy Director, I've been meaning to ask this. I would have asked it the other night. We ran a little long, but one of my priorities has been, the installation of splash pads. For instance, the one that's at Linden Rec Center, which is heavily utilized. Obviously, it doesn't take up additional staffing where we struggle to do it. We did the pool plan last year, but I have not heard any conversation about splash pads. One in particular would be useful right here at this recreation center where there is no water features up in the northeast. So I'd like to hear what the plan is for the department.
Oh, as I said, we do have an aquatic study we're in the middle of that. And having splash pads is a lot more economical way to give people a cooling feature out there. Like you said, we don't have to have lifeguards. We don't necessarily have to staff it. We have several now. We find it is meeting the needs of the community that want to see it. Where we're at now is just continually getting input for things like this. And I never thought about a facility like this, but this is a good place. It's kind of hard to answer that question because there'd be a lot of facilities that would like to have them, and there's only so much capital, improvement dollars that we could use. Each one takes operational funding to keep them up and operational. But to answer your question, it's part of the study. Every time we get input like this, we'll keep communicating whether or not it's a possibility or not. Sometimes when we build a new recreation facility, if there's room, plus there has to be room for it, obviously, too, but an existing facility like this to see if it would work and there'd be enough public use of it. Hopefully that, I know I went around a long ways to get to it. We're working on it.
Thank you.
And that aquatic study is important to look overall at the city's needs on aquatics and water, and yeah, thank you. Seeing no other questions for Recreation and Parks, next up is the Department of Public Utilities, and we're joined by Assistant Director John Lee.
President Pro Tem Brown, members of City Council, and members of the community, thank you for the opportunity to present an overview of the Department of Public Utilities 2022 capital improvement budget. Our budget includes $666 million across all of the community areas. On the north side, we have a total of $75 million planned in the capital budget. $43 million of this is targeted in North and South Linden. About $7 million is planned in Clintonville, $6.5 million in the Northland area. $6 million will be spent in Olentangy West, $4.2 million in the Northwest community, $3.6 million in the Italian Village, and the remainder, about $3.9 million, will be in North Central, Milo Grogan, and the University District, Harrison West, and the far Northwest. We also have several projects that are citywide that cover multiple planning areas. One example of that would be our initiative to change out all water meters. That's something that you're going to be seeing in your neighborhood here in the next 3 years, where your water meter will be changed out with a new advanced meter that can be read remotely. Some information resources for you about all of our projects. We have a very good website. You can follow that through the city's website. Just go to Public Utilities, click on Projects. Within that site, you can find a lot of detail on each one that I'll be talking about tonight. You can find maps, you can find timelines, you can find project parameters. You can see if some of these projects are actually in front of your home or not. A little background on the department. We serve over 1.2 million customers in the city and around in the suburbs. We provide water, sewer, storm, and power to the area. We operate 3 water plants, one nearby here, Hap Cremine on Morse Road. You're probably familiar with that. We also operate Dublin Road and Parsons Avenue water plant and 2 wastewater plants, and serve about 15,000 power customers. Our funding, as Chris Long had mentioned, we are an enterprise fund. We are self-supporting, paid and debt service for the projects that we undertake are funded through the dollars from your utility bills that you pay. A few highlights of some projects in this area. In Linden, what we're doing here in 2022, later in the year, we've got a neighborhood stormwater system improvement project that will help mitigate a lot of flooding that's been occurring in that area. Again, you can see the project parameters on our website. In Linden, we're also engaged in our Blueprint Columbus program. You probably heard about that. If not, I have some brief handouts here that you can pass around to give you some information on that program. We have $7 million targeted for that in Linden in October of 2022. We also have 3 water line projects: Atwood Terrace, Manchester Avenue, and Norse Norris Drive. It's not particularly on those streets, it's a region, so it's not just Norris Drive, it could be 5 streets in that area. Those waterline projects total $7.5 million happening later in 2022. In the northwest area, if you're from that area, we have Meekland Drive. They're gonna see an upgrade there of a sanitary sewer. That's gonna be $941 million planned for this summer. Some street lighting also in that area. Jason Way and Knights Bridge, along those streets, we're gonna see some street lighting. The cost for that is about $310,000. We'll see that in November. Here in the Northland area, Fountain Square along Morse Road, there's some flooding issues there. We're going to remedy that, mitigate that flooding. It's probably going to spill a little bit into January of 2023. That's a $4 million project. Also, in the Northland area, along Brooklyn and Cleveland, as well as Maple Canyon and Community Park. A lot of those areas around there are served by septic systems. We're going to come in there and we're going to put in a sewer, and then we've got a program where you guys can come in and tap a low-interest loan up to $10,000 to tie into that sanitary sewer. We also have some street lighting along Freeway and Kings Hill. That's a large project, about $1.3 million later this fall. Clintonville, that was one of the first areas where we started our Blueprint Columbus program. We're still working in that area, and we have still projects that are being completed, but also some that are in design. In the 2022 CIB, those design projects are in Winthrop Milton, Doris Weber, Fredonia Piedmont, Tulane Finley, and Milford Summit. If you're interested in more on the Blueprint program, on our website, again, we've got a very nice interactive map. It's a GIS-based map, so you can go there, you can actually click on that, you can see in your neighborhood where Blueprint is coming and when, what phase. There's 4 phases of Blueprint, so you can see when your neighborhood's going to be affected. Finally, in Italian Village, Milo Grogan, and the North Central area, we've got 2 waterline projects along Lexington Avenue and Germain Drive starting design later this year. And we also have a $4 million construction project redirecting some stormwater in the Kerr-Russell storm sewer shed. We're going to install 3 new storm sewers there. Council President Harden, President Pro Tem Brown, members of council, this is just a sample of some of the important community projects Public Utilities has in the 2022 capital budget. I'd be happy to answer any questions everyone has.
Thank you so much, Assistant Director Lee. And just underscoring for all of you, obviously there are large numbers that Mr. Lee always walks through because the majority of our capital budget is the utilities. And it's important to be able to understand what their priorities are because you often can't see them, right, because they're underground. There are different kinds of debt that support their capital budget than the kind of debt that supports all of the rest of the projects that the city does. And I know that Mr. Long went into that a bit, but all their projects are backed by ratepayers, which is a different kind of debt, and that's why they have the capacity they do on a regular basis to put forward such strong ways to safeguard our infrastructure. So $545 million of carryover is that total amount. So thank you very much. Are there questions from my colleagues for Mr. Lee? All right, seeing none, we will move to the next department presentation. Department of Public Service, another very exciting one. Our roads, our sidewalks, all the good stuff. Assistant Director Steve Wenzel.
Good evening, President Pro Tem Brown, President Harden, members of council, members of the community. First off, thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly about the Department of Public Service's proposed 2022 capital budget and to detail out some of the projects that we have on the north side and within the communities that you guys are all a part of. The Department of Public Service proposed 2022 capital improvements budget totals $208.2 million this year. So that's made up of $123.6 million in new funding and $84.6 million in carryover funding that will invest in roadways, sidewalks, bikeways, bridges, and other projects that will improve the quality of life in our neighborhoods. As in most years, the centerpiece of Public Service's proposed capital budget is a $31.2 million new funding resurfacing program. The Department of Public Service maintains 5,700 lane miles of city roadways. Of these lane miles, 96% of the network consists of asphalt surfaces, with concrete and brick making up the other 4%. The resurfacing program, I'm not sure if you've ever seen one happen, but what they do is they mill off the top layer of the pavement and they replace it with new asphalt. We perform full and partial depth pavement repairs. We install ADA curb ramps and we upgrade those. We do curb repair, pavement markings. We put in new loop detectors for the traffic signals. So this year, we're going to have 3 major resurfacing projects in our department that total roughly $28.5 million. With these projects, the department plans to resurface over 230 streets and construct over 900 ADA curb ramps across the city. Our department also plans to spend another $1.5 million resurfacing or rehabbing some of our concrete and brick streets throughout the city. Excuse me. Some of the streets, or a sample of the streets, that we will be resurfacing in the north side communities include Hamilton Avenue from Duxbury Road to Hudson Street, Arbor Village Drive from Morris Road to Georgetown, Dominion Boulevard from High Street to Shields, and West Case from Langhorne Drive to Moorgate Drive. Of that $31.2 million in resurfacing funds, $1.2 million will go to what we call urban paving projects. These are joint projects that we have with the Ohio Department of Transportation, or ODOT, where we'll kick in part of the funds for that part of the roadway that are in our jurisdiction, while at the same time that they're going through and resurfacing their portion of the roadway. So in this year, we're allocating $453,000 in city share funding to resurface Bush Boulevard. This will go from 161 to Schrock Road. And we're also going to resurface Schrock Road from Bush Boulevard to Interstate 71. Also included in this proposed capital improvements budget are other high-level investments that are being made specific to the north side. For example, this budget proposal includes $2.25 million in construction funding for the Hudson Street project, which is going to basically rehab Hudson Street from I-71 all the way to Cleveland Avenue. Funding is needed to allow for the department to finish up construction. This project actually began last month, so you've probably seen some dirt or some equipment out there on Hudson Street. So we're throwing in another $2.25 million to finish that construction once it happens in the next year to 2 years. So this project, like I said, is going to reconstruct Hudson Street from I-70 to Cleveland Avenue. The reconstruction will include installing new curbs, reconstruction and modification to existing median on the east leg of I-71 at Hudson Street, the intersection there. We're going to put sidewalk on the north side, a shared use path on the south side. We're going to upgrade with street trees, new traffic signals, storm sewer, a new 24-inch water main, and new ADA curb ramps at the intersections. So this budget proposal also includes $200,000 in right-of-way acquisition funding, and this is for the American Additions Phase 4 Infrastructure Improvement Project. Improvements include restructuring roadway infrastructure, adding pedestrian safety, improving stormwater drainage. Upon completion of this multi-phase project, this is Phase 4, this historic neighborhood will be enhanced with almost 700 new ADA curb ramps. We'll have sidewalks, curb, gutter, new water line, and a new neighborhood-style street lighting. This project is scheduled to go to construction in 2023. This 2022 capital budget proposal also includes $6.7 million in what we call mobility safety improvements. As a part of the mobility budget, $4.2 million is allocated for Bikeway Development projects. A majority of this will fund the Worthington Woods Boulevard shared use path that is finishing design right now. This project consists of approximately 7,700 feet of shared use path on the south and southeast side of Worthington Woods Boulevard from Sankas to Park Road. And it's also along the south side of Park Road from Worthington Woods Boulevard to Deer Creek Drive. In addition, sidewalk will be installed on the north side of Park Road from Worthington Woods Boulevard to Deer Creek. We're going to put in new curbs and new gutters to be installed as needed, as well as stormwater facilities will also be installed in conjunction with the curb additions. So lastly, the 2022 capital improvement budget includes $9 million for refuse collection vehicles to replace and update the division's fleet that service 344,000 households every week. Some of this equipment will be dedicated to support the Clean Neighborhoods Initiative to address the persistent problem of illegal dumping in our neighborhoods. Again, I would like to thank council and the community for allowing me to present and propose 2022 capital improvements budget for the Department of Public Service.
Great, thank you so much. Any questions from my colleagues? All right, the next department we have is Columbus Public Health, and we have with us Assistant Health Commissioner Tiffany Kraus.
Thank you to Council President Pro Tem Brown, Council President Hardin, other members of council. The Columbus Public Health's capital budget will be utilized in three separate ways. $6.5 million will be allocated for our third and fourth floor renovations at 240 Parsons Avenue. Our building is over 100 years old and has not had any significant renovations since we occupied it in 2001. We have grown from a workforce of over 300 to now over 500 strong and are in need of additional workspace. The second area is $2.5 million, which will be allocated for roofing repairs for our building at 240 Parsons Avenue. The roof on our building is in need of repairs. As we saw this week, we have significant leaks that are affecting some of our clinical areas. And finally, $350,000 for the migration of our environmental health software to a cloud-based product, which will allow for the data migration to a new technology called Envision Connect, which is a cloud-based application which will help modernize how we access the application. That's all.
Great. Thank you so much. Any questions for our health department from members? All right. And then our final presentation is from the Department of Public Safety. We are joined by Deputy Director Dan Giangardella.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Brown, President Hardin, Safety Chair Remy, members of council. So you've probably heard the saying, last but not least, but our little take on that is we're the last tonight, and in some extent the least. As opposed to the operating budget, where public safety is over $500 million, from the capital perspective, we're just $37 million. So it's a much smaller piece of the pie, and I'm sure my colleagues are grateful that we leave a little bit of the general fund for them. So with that, let me, on behalf of Safety Director Robert Clark, let me thank you for allowing us to present some information to you this evening on public safety's 2022 capital budget. We have about $17 million in new funding and about $19 million in carryover, so again, about $37 million. Most of this will be devoted to the design of a 911 center and real-time crime center that we are looking for property. We have some locations that are under consideration, including at least one of those in the north end of town. So we have about $10 million to do that design, which will probably be more than sufficient. And then obviously we'll look to 2023 to begin to enter into contract to construct that facility. A real-time crime center is something that integrates technology, intelligence. It hopes will improve officer responsiveness, provide officers with up-to-date information when they arrive on scene. Also will help us with interoperability with other law enforcement agencies like the county. Our 911 call center, our current call center is at Fairwood Avenue in a rented facility from Public Utilities. We've been there approximately 30 years. It is woefully outdated. We have done some minor renovations to it, but we really do need to replace it. For a city as large as Columbus, we're really behind the times when it comes to how we service our 911 and get that information out to our police and firemen. So we need to do a better job there, and we're looking forward to looking at a new facility. With respect to police substations, On the north end right now, we are looking at some property, but the only one that we are in design or soon to be in design will be at the Hilltop at this time. We have about $5 million in funds. In fact, I believe last month, council approved about $1.8 million to design a new Hilltop substation, which is precinct 19. But we are actively looking at property in the northern part of the city as well to replace some of our substations. We do have a fire station, which will probably be Fire Station 36. It's actually in the far northeast around Central College and Harlem Road, where the city already owns property. Again, that'll be about $1.8 million for design of that facility, and we anticipate construction of that sometime in 2023. We also, within our capital budget, we have fire apparatus at $6 million. That fire apparatus usually is for replacement of existing equipment, so it could be a variety of our stations around the city. Obviously, we're looking at, for 2022, we're looking at 5 engines and 5 EMS response vehicles, as well as the equipment that goes along with those vehicles, electronics, communication equipment, et cetera. Another program now that's approaching 10 years in the city is our neighborhood safety camera program. We started this in 2021 with 111 cameras in 5 Columbus neighborhoods. Initial investment was $2 million. We have periodically updated that system over the years. There is $1 million in carryover funding that will allow us to probably invest about 30 to 40 other additional locations, including several neighborhoods in the northern part of Columbus. Also for communications equipment, we have about $2 million for police and fire 800 megahertz radios. These are essentially replacements. All of our police officers have are equipped with a mobile radio. All of our vehicles, police and fire, are equipped with radios. So this $2 million allows us to continue to replace those. The police impound lot, which is on the southern part of the city, needs some resurfacing accomplished there. The parking lot there, which is quite large, was initially put in as a gravel lot. So there is $6 million in the capital budget to replace and to resurface that down there. And then we have a variety of police and fire facility renovations. We have 34 fire stations across the city. We have almost 24 police facilities as well as training academies. Finance allocates about $3 million to us each year to do some minor upgrades, things like pavement restorations, HVAC upgrades, kitchen renovations in our fire stations, roof and window replacements. Again, just general facility improvements. So $3 million for that. And then on top of that, there's another $2 million for our fire training academy. We have increased substantially the number of women recruits into our fire academy, and we're very excited about that. Unfortunately, our locker room and restroom facilities are woefully inadequate for the numbers that we are now getting in our classes. So we are in the process right now of upgrading those facilities along with resurfacing our parking lot at the Fire Training Academy. And then lastly, we have about $1.5 million in capital improvements for additional video storage. As most of you probably know, the Columbus Division of Police about 5 years ago began wearing body cameras. We actually are in the midst, the beginning stages of replacing all of those body-worn cameras. That combined with the approximately 350 neighborhood safety cameras that we have out there has exponentially increased the amount of video that we store. So we have funds available to, if need be, provide us additional storage capacity to store more video camera. So with that, I concludes my information. There are some boards behind me that you can probably see there. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you might have tonight. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Deputy Director. Any questions, Councilmember? Okay, great. Thank you very much again to the department heads for their outlines. And now we are going to move along to public testimony. I'm going to start with what I have here in my hand in order of signups. We have 7, and then there are 2 questions online as well. So, excuse me, first we have David Roseman. There is a microphone right back there, and I believe Kelsey will be timekeeper. Someone will be timekeeper. We definitely want to keep it to 3 minutes for your question or comment so that we can make sure we get through everyone and respect everyone's time.
Hello all, David Roseman here, Columbus City Council members, directors, and staff. I'm a 40-year resident of Columbus. Here tonight representing, pinch hitting if you will, on behalf of Northland Community Council President Alicia Ward. I am also going to represent as board member, vice president of Friends of Allen Creek and Tributaries, otherwise known as FACT. A lot of you know I'm also the former chair of the Sierra Club Central Ohio Group, helped work with Blueprint way back when and the consent decree, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm also the former founding board member of Central Ohio Bicycling Advocacy Coalition, Consider Biking, which then morphed into Yay Bikes. So have a little baggage here. First question that I have to everybody here without having scrutinized the budget is what is the annual sidewalk budget for retrofitting new sidewalks? I won't even wait for an answer. I believe it's always been for many, many years about $5 million, which might get us on a good day 5 miles of sidewalk if we don't have to deal with stormwater. Whatever it is, I'm asking that budget to be increased by at least tenfold because the city of Columbus is still 50% lacking of sidewalks where they can be built and need to be built. That's before biking, that's before transit. You need the first mile, last mile. You get to get out of your house and be able to walk or get in a wheelchair or be able to get to transit or be able to get to public transportation. And I'm going to name off some roads in the area. I'd be glad to provide additional ones. But in the Northland area, Sunbury Road, Cooper Road, Ulrey Road, Westerville Road, between 161 and Morris. There's still gaps on Cleveland Avenue, which is a bus rapid transit area. State Route 161, yes, I know. That is going to be in the budget for the next 20 years, but we still don't have any sidewalks there for a major corridor. We also have DPU and DPS side by side here. We seem to always have a conflict between trails that are greenway along nice riparian corridors that cut down a lot of woodlands that we're trying to preserve through the Master Urban Forestry Plan, and at the same time we're trying to build sidewalks. Why can't we get together and build more side paths that don't destroy the riparian corridor or the forest that we're trying to preserve, and at the same time provide good bike, ped, transit along a roadway where we could have a 10-foot wide side path. That's been done very nicely in some areas, but in other areas, the two are not connecting. Now, finally, Recreation and Parks is catching up, building some local connectors. DPS is catching up, doing that as well. Morse Road, these are little David Roseman things that I've contacted, and over the years they finally have gotten done. That's great. And I see that we're going to finally have a connector going on Agler Road. That's because the Franklin County engineer, as a complete streets person that I've been bugging for years, they're doing the overhead bridge and said, hey, we need a ramp because we got a 2-mile trail with no local connections. You can't get to a local road or your neighborhood. You got to drive to a park to get to a park. Can't get back home that way. But because of that, Columbus came in, pitched in some money. So finally, thank goodness, through KIPP Academy, we're building a connector path there. Could have been done a long time ago. Anyway, Department of Public Utilities Stormwater Manual has unfortunately stymied Department of Public Services' ability to add side paths and sidewalks. That has increased budgets because I know the Stormwater Manual requires water capturing systems for that. I would still like to see it allow a variance for that if we're just going to talk about retrofitting an existing roadway to put a side path. Several projects were not allowed to do that because Stormwater Manual came into impact. Let's talk about Vision Zero, all that sort of stuff. 50 miles an hour on State Route 161, ridiculous. We got to do all that. So I'll follow up later on with everybody and our representative, and thank you very much for your time. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your longtime advocacy. Like here on sidewalks, we're a 224 square mile city, and we did not have the proper rules in place during so much of development, right? So things became unwieldy, and every year the department is fighting to play catch up to get our city in better shape when it comes to sidewalks. So I hear that frustration. I feel the frustration too. And we could do a whole capital budget of sidewalks, frankly, for what the need is out there. But you had a long list of concerns, and thank you for that advocacy. And I know there's going to be some follow-up afterward on a lot of those. So I won't try to accomplish every one of them here, but I wanted to pause before moving on to see if Mr. Wenzel or Mr. Lee had any input, because they were mostly utility and service focused. And it's okay if you don't have all the answers, but.
Yeah, I definitely don't have all those answers, but I'll do the best I can. So you're right. Typically, when you look at, you'll go through and pour through the budget, you're going to see that, I mentioned, I believe we had $6 million in mobility funds, and that goes for sidewalks, it goes for bikeways, it goes for things like that. What you won't see necessarily lined itemed out there is these major projects that we're doing, like Hudson, where we are putting sidewalks in as a part of that project. But it's not broken out in the budget that way, so you're not going to see that.
Talking about retrofits, not big projects.
Yeah, but, yeah, so, I mean, we're putting in sidewalks with pretty much every project that we're trying to do, as well as do retrofits, as well as, tap into different resources like school transportation funds, and council was so good enough to give us some school funds a few years back. So we're pulling in a lot of different resources to do as much sidewalks as we can. Like Councilmember Brown said, we could do a whole capital budget just on sidewalks. If we wanted to spend $500 million on sidewalks, we could. But we are working through getting as many out there as we can, either through a project or through retrofits or through other things that we're working with the schools in CODA and things of that nature too. So we're working to get there. I mean, like Councilmember said, when we annexed in a lot of different things into the city that didn't include sidewalks. We didn't have strong enough in development things that we do now, where like if you're doing a development, you're going to put in sidewalks. So.
Cooper Road was one of them when you acquired from Linden Township, and you now have 6 huge multifamily complexes. Lots and lots of people, no shoulder, 2-lane windy country road.
Yeah, 50% of the city does not have sidewalks. So.
I'm going to allow more conversation to happen after we close, if that's okay. Thank you very much. And it's because I want to get to our next speaker, who is Dr. Daniel. Hello.
Sorry, can I just bring this? I'm a little bit. Never mind my height. Yeah, good evening, everybody. Once again, my name is Dr. Daniel, the Vice Chair for North Linden Area Commission, and also the Chair for Health and Safety Committee. I'm so glad to be here tonight, and also representing the Chair, that's Ms. Carol Perkins, who, for another engagement, could not be here tonight. Nevertheless, we have itemized some of our concerns as far as not just North Linden area, but for Linden as a whole, from the perspective of health and public safety. And first, let me say thank you. At least in the course of the presentation tonight, I had some of the beautiful things that is about to happen on Hudson Street, and that has, of course, been a major concern for someone like me personally, and really want to say thank you for that. However, we would like to put it on record that we want to see that happen as soon as possible, so that we can have a safe road to drive on, and that's part of the community. Number two is the fact that as far as Linden area is concerned, I want to believe our major concern is our safety, the safety of the people, the safety of lives and properties. And we want to emphasize the need for us to pay more attention on that, so that whatever we are putting together, as far as Linden area is concerned, we also put into consideration the people that live, in North Linden area. Like I said, we've itemized about 5 things that we'll love to see, and one of them is Hudson Street, and thank you for addressing that. Nevertheless, we will greatly appreciate upgrading street lights to the LED lights. We also like to put on record the need for some of our roads to be repaired, especially the ones on Medina Avenue, then the alley behind the new Linden Rec Center. It's quite interesting that that beautiful edifice has got an average or below average road that leads to it. And that's cause for a concern so that we can get that done. And we also called for an improvement on our pedestrian, also on our intersection safety. We are also looking at an improvement on Metropolitan Library. That's the one on Linden. We would love to see an improvement on that so that Linden area can become a catchment, not just for the Linden people, but for everyone living in Columbus. Finally, we put here that there are areas that Blueprint Columbus will not reach in North Linden. And one of such is the intersect on 71 North. And we want to put on record that some of the residents still complain about flooding. And we want to put it to all of us to please help to work on that. So having said that, I want to say on behalf of everyone in North Linden that we love what you're doing, and we hope that together we can make the city of Columbus become more workable for all of us. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel. And I want to thank the North Linden Area Commission for their partnership. We've been working with area commissions to get priorities into the capital budget on the front end side in addition to these hearings. So I'm really glad we were able to capture some of the priorities so far. And I do believe that list lives with our team, our community engagement office, and our team at my office to make sure that it is top of mind for department as we're allocating dollars. So thank you very much. Next we have Vertus Erkins. Hi. Yes.
I'm part of the South Linden Area Commission. Even though we still operate as one, there's still two. So I'm just going to piggyback with a little bit specifics. Cleveland Avenue from 11th all the way up, we need some calming traffic measures because there have been several accidents repeatedly, and there's increased speeding. And the sidewalk, basically on the east side, has actually bowed upward, and we have one resident who walks that area, and she trips repeatedly, and she is partially blind. So those are one of the areas. Cleveland Avenue from, I think, from 12th, 13th, and Windsor, that particular area, trees have come up through the sidewalk. It's actually bowed up, and we have residents tripping and falling and hurting themselves. So I just want to put that on the record. I know we submitted our stuff through community engagement as well. Bike paths on Cleveland Avenue. We want bike paths that are clearly defined, and that way, especially on Cleveland Avenue, it's not just for North Linden, it's just down Cleveland Avenue. A lot of people are biking more and more. So we're asking for more bike paths to be specifically, clearly defined on that street, Cleveland Avenue. And also, if we could, I'm not sure if it's in the budget, to have some kind of study to see if we can have an outlet, especially near Maloney Park, that will somehow go into or connect to Alum Creek for a bike path. So the Linden area is kind of like, don't have any outlets, really clear defined outlets to connect to the trails. So we're trying to see if there can be some way we could connect to one of the trails. Those are really the three basic ones, but we have committed a long list.
Thank you very much. I appreciate flagging those things. And I'm going to just ask the department while they're here to make sure we check on the sidewalk issue. If we could get someone to look at that, obviously, that's a major quality of life hazard if there are neighbors, you know, who are blind or otherwise would be tripping on that. So if we could get the department on that, that'd be great. Thank you. And then Cleveland Avenue, 11th and up, and then the Maloney Park connection to trails. Thank you for that too. So, unless you have a comment on it, other than.
I'd be glad to talk to you after this if you have time.
Great. That would be great. So next we have Alice Fuller.
Good evening, Council President Pro Tem and Councilmember Remy and Assistant Deputy Directors, members of the community. My name is Alice Fuller. I'm speaking on behalf of Elevate Northland. Elevate Northland is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that was started by me and some other members of our community. And we are also Northland's CDC, Community Development Corporation. And I forgot to turn the timer on. We have submitted a request to the capital budget, and I know most of the capital budget is obviously for city things like sidewalks and your own buildings that you have to take care of. This is a unique project in that, unlike North Market, if the roof springs a leak, it's going to be our problem, but it will be a huge asset to the city, bringing services to entrepreneurs in the most entrepreneurial part of the city. So our target is new Americans, immigrants, refugees, and the legacy residents of Northland, like myself, who were born and raised here, who start small businesses. And what we've learned from the new American members of our board, such as Kwesi Gima, who owns the Inkwell, and Cynthia Engman, who's been appointed to a commission at the state of Ohio, while there are resources within Columbus, like Rev 1 Ventures and ECDI and the Food Fort, folks in our new American communities stick close to home and are, even though the Food Fort is there, well, first of all, it's full actually, and so it can't support any more businesses, but they're unlikely to travel to Leonard Avenue from Carl and 161. So building a new facility is very much in the interest of our community, and now with gas prices what they are, no one's going to drive a food truck all the way down to Leonard Avenue anyway and all the way back up. So if you can imagine, near Skate Zone 71 on Evanswood Drive, we have recently taken possession of a large warehouse, and inside the front will be co-working office space for small businesses that are service-oriented, as well as other nonprofits who would like to have a location in Northland, which many do, co-locate together. And then in the back, in the warehouse portion, if you can imagine a large commercial kitchen with different sections that people can rent at different times or simultaneously. Parking in the back for food trucks. We need to run utilities out there so they can charge and refill their water tank and get some propane. All the kinds of things that small businesses need. Racking system for our warehouse area. And what we have already done is we have a 30-year lease on a building. We will be a long-term community-based project. We have the keys, we have donated office furniture, we have Moody Nolan working on the drawings for the interior, we have Wasserstrom working on the kitchens, and we have Cameron Mitchell, not just his blessing and a little donation, but him sitting in Zoom meetings with us, saying, you know, him giving me his CFO to review our business plan. We're going to run this thing in the black. It will be financially sustainable. We just need to get over this part where we have to build it and fill it up with people. We all know the first year of business is not usually one that is, you know, debt-free. So the capital budget request is for assistance with building out the interior, the kitchen, the warehouse space, and all of that. And you already have that. So thank you so much. We really look forward to being an asset to the city.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Fuller. We really appreciate the efforts of Elevate Linden. Councilmember Remy was the first one who put it on my radar before I met with you, I think, in a park for the first time. So it's really cool to see where it has come and where we know it will go. And we appreciate the capital request that you've sent our way. So thank you. Next is Liban Buell.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Liban Boule. I am from Somalia. I am the New American Resource Center CEO, and I'm the founder. Before I ask the questions, I just wanted to tell you that the New American Resource Center It's a center that really helps for the new Americans. And when I say new Americans, it includes for the Somalis, Afghanistan, Nepalis, and Congolese, those who came from in war-torn countries. We specifically have, based on mental health and addiction services. We don't want it just to be all over around, because we know that having been in a war country, that you have a lot of problems. I remember that I was 14 years old when I fled my country, Somalia. And I walked from Somalia to Kenya, 60 days. And that's why when I came to America and went to school, and I have a master's degree in social work, I said this is the time I have to pay back to my community. Every 2 years I go back home. I have an international organization that helps the droughts and the famine in Somalia and Kenya. Let me come back to my question. Last 20 years I've been running after the mental health. I worked at Adam H as a CIT, as a CFAC. I worked at Southeast Inc. I've been all over around. And finally what I realized is that the Western institutions will not understand unless we break the ices of the spiritual. So what we did was, last year we were recognized by the Ohio Department of Mental Health, and we were given a grant by $500,000 to go ahead and make education and awareness to new Americans. I go Cincinnati, Cleveland, Dayton, everywhere, just to make sure that any new American who is there and has any mental health problem should not be left behind. I have trained 15 imams in the mosques, because my ultimate goal is to open Shifa Healing Center, where the psychiatric and the imam sit together and can talk each other. Because that's a disconnection here, we know that. There is a disconnection between the spiritual leaders and the Western medicine. So for me, as I have been through both areas, I'm connecting them those dots. My question is, the most dangerous time in America is 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. And the most dangerous months in America is the summertime. As a Somali, as a new American, we do have a lot of youngsters who have lost their lives because of violence, and they were being left behind. In public safety, the question that I do have is, when you don't have programs that occupy the mentals and the minds of the youngsters will go into the convenience store and do bad things. So as leaders, we've tried to make sure that those who go to the wrong ways and the violent ways should be accommodated, a place where they can be leaders of tomorrow, a place 2 hours where we can give them a leadership, shops where we can give them, what's going on in the world, where we can educate them. If we don't do that, every time we will talk about victims and victims. So respectfully, what I want to ask the city of Columbus is that, and I want to thank Elizabeth Braun. She has been very helpful to the new American community for the last 20 years. And Mr. Rami is also a wonderful guy who has been very helpful to us. And I want to thank you for everything that you do, the whole city and new Americans. Thank you, everybody.
So much. And we really appreciate your advocacy here tonight and the ongoing relationship. I know that the directors and deputy directors really appreciate hearing directly from you too. Thank you. Next, we have Judith Cockrell.
Safe. All right, let me start my clock. All right, good evening, everyone, council members, directors, executive directors. I am here to speak on from two different perspectives. One, as the executive director of Elevate Northland, as well as a legacy resident of the Northland area. My family has been in Sharon Woods for over 40 years, and there are some things that I got that I want to share. I made a quick list. This is for public service. This has to do with sidewalks on Maple Canyon. There's a request for that and a need, as well as the trees. As you mentioned in South Linden, we are experiencing the same thing with the trees that were planted by the city. That's that area between the sidewalk and the street, that they are dangerously uneven. And as we know, the increase in the Northland area is over 15%. More people are walking, riding bikes, but it is very dangerous. I walk my dog every day, and this is specific. I'm speaking of my experience on Keltonshire, which is off of Sharon Boulevard. The sidewalks are just completely up, very, very dangerous there. Dangerous unevenly, and then safety. This is for Maple Canyon. There is a stop sign that's at Maple Canyon and Corporate Exchange. For many years, there was a sign that said if you are continuing right, that you do not need to stop. Now that sign is gone, and there's a lot of confusion, so it's very unclear to the community on how to approach the stop sign. There's no line that means stop. But I've seen notes, there's a school bus stop there, so please stop, but people just aren't aware. So if there could be some attention paid to those areas for the safety, that would be very much appreciated. Then there's also street lights on Hillendale and Skyway. Now, there are streetlights on Sharon Woods, which also there is a request for some kind of speed altering. I know it is a boulevard and there are some guidelines, but they are very outdated and they do not match what the current situation is. The amount of traffic, it's like a mini highway on Sharon Woods. And I live on Sharon Woods and I'm watching it and like, this is dangerous. And we also have bike lanes, so it's even more dangerous. There have been 2 accidents on Sharon Woods where someone has been speeding down the street, lost control of their vehicle, veered over to the next lane, hit the street light, hit a tree, and then hit the car in the next thing. That was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday. So these are just, if there's any opportunity to review those guidelines for boulevards, please do so, because speed is definitely an issue. And then again, with the street lights, there are street lights on Sharon Woods, which are amazing. However, streets like Skyway, which goes from Sharon Woods to Schrock Road, and as well as Hillendale, which runs next to Northgate Elementary School, when it gets dark, it's pitch black. I know that there are many Legacy residents that live there, and when their light went out, and they said it took a lot of time to get it replaced, but they're like, you know what, we drove by the house because that's like a signal for us that we've come home. So those are just some voices from the community that I wanted to share. And then as regards to Elevate Northland, and the community center, Elevate Northland Center, which would be more of a modern type of community center. And one more thing, I'm sorry, Councilman, remember you had mentioned something about the splash parks. With that increase in population in the Northland area, swimming pools are not something that this population is aware of. Something like splash pads would be more inviting and safer for the families and the children there, and be encouraging them to get out and enjoy the summer months. Because yes, 3 to 6 is a dangerous time because parents aren't at home and kids are alone. And the weekend, in the summer, parents are at work all day and kids are out. So if we can provide some kind of opportunity and some kind of space for them that would be inviting, that would be much appreciated as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for connecting those dots at the end. I feel like you picked up on Lee Bond's point and on council members' point, so thank you for that. I just want to flag for the department, the Maple Canyon sign should definitely be addressed as quickly as possible. And then the speed on Sharon Woods, yeah, I connect afterwards because I'm eliding details, I realize. But the speeds, that's so hard to live around. I know that the department has a Vision Zero plan and really wants to get those things under control. As much as possible, if you can log concerns with 311, it does help the department be able to see where the pain points happen across the city, because I believe your colleague Randy Borntrager said this at Tuesday's hearing, is that we don't have a way of measuring the near misses, right? Like when it hits the statistics, it's typically the worst has happened, and someone has been killed or badly injured. And the near misses of speeding are something that sometimes can fly under the radar. So if residents, when they see those things, can call, it does help fill out the picture for us.
Could we ask Deputy Director Wenzel to talk about Maple Canyon, because those sidewalks are going in. Just when are they going in?
For where? I'm sorry.
Maple Canyon, yeah.
They're under design right now. I believe they're in the right-of-way acquisition process too. So I think construction is scheduled for 2023, I believe, towards the end of the year.
Thank you, Councilmember. Next, we have Aaron Newman.
Hey, thank you very much, President Pro Tem. Thank you, Member Remy, department staff, and all the city staff for putting this together. There are lots of things that we in the far northwest Columbus would like. We'd like lots of street lights. We'd like maybe a police substation. We're about 10 miles, or 10 minutes, 15 minutes away from the nearest patrols usually. But there are a few things that we need. They're not anything new, things we've asked for in past years. Namely, we could use the sidewalks completed along Smoky Row from Hard Road south to Snoffer. It's been several years since we did the sidewalks north to the county line, and you could definitely tell the difference between folks taking their families out, walking their dogs, taking babies out in strollers, and then whole families trudging through the mud and the snow just to get to the UDF. So I think it's time that we finally finish that project. We still need Billingsley Road expanded and improved. It's no safer now than it was when you visited several years ago. The dealerships there are expanding. It's a constant nuisance for the neighbors along Billingsley, and again, we would love to see some improvements there. And then finally, any way we can expand or improve on the parks or green space. Maybe, in fact, definitely, we should add a 33rd community center. We don't have anything like this in the far northwest. We have to drive 20, 25 minutes, 30 minutes to get to Lozelle Woods or Carriage Place, which are great. Those are great facilities. That's not our community, though, and I think our community could definitely use one. Hard Road Park is right there, got plenty of room there. So I'd like to see that maybe added into the large projects budget, please.
Thank you.
Those are the big ones. Happy to take the questions.
Thank you so much. Is there any plan for Billingsley Road? It is a narrow 2-lane road with quite a lot of traffic. And I don't expect you to have an exact answer right now, but it would be great to understand whether that's in the department's, 5-year plan or sooner.
Yeah, I can check. I'm not aware of any improvements, but I will check.
Okay. Thank you. And Parks and Green Space, and I know that Deputy Director Hyland talked about the vision of the department, which is absolutely where they're moving, which is to get green space within a 10-minute walk of every resident. And we've got a ways to go until we get there, but that is the framework under which all of their capital plans are oriented, along with maintenance of the assets that we do have. But that also means they hold back some cost or some money each year in their capital budget to be ready for an opportunity. If something arises, they can procure some land that could bring us closer to that goal. And so I hear you and how frustrating that is. And we appreciate the ability to stay in contact about your priorities.
We'll stay in contact. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Christine Osro.
Good evening. My name is Christine. I'm a local Devonshire resident and advocate for the city, and thank you so much to the City of Columbus for everything you guys are doing. Very proud to be in the city. One question for the team is, with people becoming more green, can recycling become picked up every week instead of every other? And then I'm also here to advocate on behalf of an application that has been submitted on behalf of the Huckleberry House. The Huckleberry House is a safe house for youth ages 12 to 17, helping foster care kids and kids that are in risk situations and have been since 1970. The application we have on file is for a renovation of the second floor. The full retail value of this project is over $110,000. Through a partnership with the NARI, which is the National Association of Remodeling Industry, which is a local contractors and manufacturers, we are only asking for $28,000 to cover permits, architectural plans, and materials that cannot be donated. This renovation project will allow the Huckleberry House to have a larger intake as we are making more bed space. We're also improving lighting, function, removing old lead paints, and cleanability for future staff. So I do ask that you do take the Huckleberry House into consideration for your upcoming projects, and Elevate Northland and everyone else. So thank you so much for all your team does. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to start actually with the recycling question, and my my esteemed colleague here can either field it or pass it to the department, but he's the recycling man.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. Of course, we would like to be able to do that on a weekly basis throughout the city, but the reality is that throughout the city, the adoption rate to recycling is quite different from one end of town to the other. So many neighborhoods I have 2 bins personally. You can order an extra bin. They're about $45 roughly. I've got 2 and they're stuffed right now, and recycling goes on Saturday for me this week. However, there are many parts of the city where recycling is non-existent or very low. And so what we do for one has to happen for all as it relates to the services that we provide. So it's not quite realistic at this point to do that, but certainly we are working to educate people. We are working to create, more adoption rate, higher adoption rates throughout the city. And certainly it is our mission to get to a point where someday we could ultimately be picked up trash every other week and recycling every week. But as of right now, it's not quite feasible, but we're working on that every single day.
Yes, thank you for that. And as for the proposal for Huckleberry House, I believe we just received that, and so thank you for that. And it's for $26,000, if I have my notes right. $26,300. So thank you for that, and I think it will be doable. So we will follow up with you on the details. Thank you. All right, so that concludes our speaker slips, but as promised, we have fielded questions. The powerful team in the back has fielded questions on YouTube. And so, first question, is North Nobixby Park the area south of the Columbus Torah Academy that Parks and Rec and Parks bought a few years back?
Yes.
Yes.
And we do plan to develop the frontage to the south. We'll begin the planning later this year on that.
So you do plan to develop that parcel?
Correct.
Okay, so yes to the YouTube person
Yes
that's
to the
watching.
YouTube person, yes.
Okay, yes, that is it.
Thanks for YouTubing.
Thanks for YouTubing, that is it. And the design will start later this year?
I would say yes.
Yep, okay, great. And then a really general question for Mr. Wenzel. Do any of the planned road improvements involve road widening?
In some cases, yes, and in some cases, no. I guess it just depends on what project they're talking about. But we do look at capacity when we're doing a design and evaluating when we're doing road projects. So yeah, we do sometimes widen them, sometimes we shrink them too.
Right.
That sometimes helps with the speeds and things of that nature.
Yes, thank you. So it depends on the needs of the corridor and the road, the route. And if there was a specific, whoever asked that question online and you're still listening, if there's a specific road that you were thinking of that you're wondering about widening, please contact us. We can get that to the department and get you an answer. All right, well with that, that concludes our hearing. Thank you so much to the department heads for being here. They really work hard to get good information into your hands when you come to these hearings. Thank you all for your participation in your government's work. We truly appreciate it, and it's how good work is done. Just a quick housekeeping item on timing. The CIB will be tabled at Monday's council meeting and for these hearings to complete, and then final consideration and passage of the budget will be at the end of the month. I do want to thank the Finance Department staff, Director Kathy Owens, also former Director Joe Lombardi, who saw the capital budget through partway, and then the new Director Kathy Owens came in. I want to thank the CTV crew here tonight, Alex Brown, Evan Smith, and Carlos Taborda. They have a lot of setup to do to make this work out in our centers. I want to thank the Rec and Parks team here for allowing us this space and getting it all set up for us. Council's community engagement team, as always, holds these up. Matt Erickson in the Legislative Research Office, as always, gets council members their budget briefings so we can come here and kind of know what we're talking about. And then in my office, Kelsey and Tigist really do keep everything moving. So we appreciate, again, your participation. I want to flag, shameless plug because I have the microphone, that I do a office hours series at playgrounds on weekends to make it a little easier for parents. I'm a working parent. I find it hard sometimes to participate in like the times at which we hold civic activities, right? So I do my office hours on playgrounds. And if you want to meet me at the playground, you can have kids or not have kids. If you have yours, they'll be able to play with mine. And we've got one coming up on Saturday, August 20th from 2 to 3:30 at Blackburn Park. Saturday, September 17th, 2 to 3:30 at Marion Franklin Community Center, and then kind of a one-off on the west side, Wednesday, July 20th, so that's just coming up from 4 to 5:30 to time up with the Highland Youth Gardens sort of neighborhood open house. So that one's a little different. But meet me at the playground. Would always love to field these ongoing questions and check in on your projects. And with that, thank you again for being here.